Yesterday, the Illinois Statehouse, both the House and Senate's in session. They've got now 4 days left before scheduled adjournment. And have we seen the budget? Have you seen the budget? I'm at the Statehouse in the basement watching multiple feeds. I have not seen the budget. But we have seen a whole bunch of legislation move through, and let's take a look at that. And you can follow along at thecentersquare.com. Again, thecentersquare.com. It's where we are a nonprofit news wire service. You can follow along and get a newsletter and even donate to keep us on the ground reporting. So some of the headlines from yesterday's action. Again, we've got 4 days now before Friday's scheduled adjournment. And they have until May 31st to pass a budget with simple majorities. We have yet to see what that budget is going to look like, especially with the ongoing budget crunch that the governor's office notified state agencies about. So just some of these headlines here. We'll go through them bit by bit. Commission approves audit of executive management agency shakeup. If you remember, back in October, the Chicago Sun-Times reported that an assistant to the Illinois Emergency Management Agency director was essentially quit after it was revealed that state taxpayers paid them almost $250,000 for their salary in just 7 months. That's double the salary of the IEMA director. All right. A couple of other people lost their jobs after this. So State Senator Chapin Rose, he moved at the Legislative Audit Commission to have an audit of this situation, and they're going to have that audit. So they approved that yesterday. That happened early on in the morning with the Legislative Audit Commission. If you're not familiar with the Legislative Audit Commission, it is a bipartisan panel of equal number Republicans, equal number Democrats from both the House and the Senate. They get together, they review audits, they can also order audits. The Legislative Audit Commission, an important part for taxpayers knowing exactly how much money they are being used properly or just not being used as it should. But Senator Rose, he was able to get that audit of what happened at the Legislative Audit Commission, looking into the Illinois Emergency Management Agency and an individual making six figures, if not $250,000 from contracts there. So that's one headline you can find at thecentersquare.com. You can find more. This one, I think, is going to rile up some civil libertarians out there. Illinois House advances a measure opening the door to a digital ID. This is fascinating because this idea of a digital ID rubs people the wrong way. Those who don't want to be monitored or tracked via computers, those who see a surveillance grid of sorts being thrown around them and over their families, they don't want that. But what this measure would do is it would just, they say it's enabling legislation. Enabling legislation is like saying, hey, you've never done this before, state agency. Here's some language that will allow you to do this thing you've never been able to do before. So it's enabling legislation that says, hey, the Illinois Secretary of State can offer the digital ID or digital driver's license, something that can show up on your cell phone, right? Instantly, Republicans pushed back and said, what about some of the problems with, say, you're at a traffic stop, you have this digital ID on your cell phone, and then the officer says, hey, show me your ID. You're just going to hand him your cell phone? You're going to say, here's my cell phone? Take my phone with all my personal information on it. All documents that could or could not be incriminating for this particular issue I'm being pulled over for, or other issues that you may not even be thinking about right now. Right? So Republicans were quick to point out those civil libertarian concerns, saying, what about somebody who hands their phone over to a law enforcement officer who has tools and capabilities to be able to quickly download all the data off this phone in short order, possibly getting other incriminating information without a warrant? How's that going to be handled with this? Well, and the sponsor, State Representative Cam Buckner, who from Chicago, he said that, they would still need a warrant to go through your phone, even though you'd be voluntarily handing your phone to somebody. And it also says, apparently in the proposed legislation that passed the House, you can simply by having the phone handed over to police is not a invitation to search the phone. So regardless, it's not going to be mandated, apparently. And they say this is just to kind of get the ball rolling on this. So it can be a convenient option, Interestingly, nobody asked if you're going to need a digital ID to vote. Nobody asked if you're going to need a digital ID to, say, work your job or to get a professional license. Something else that I think is kind of interesting when it comes to the idea of not being able to work if you don't get a digital ID. Are there going to be protections in there, right? And while they also talk about a lot about this digital ID at the same time yesterday in a House committee, they talked about identification protection, essentially saying that the Secretary of State is not to share certain information of individuals' identities with like third parties, for instance. But Republicans were a little weary. They said that some of the language in that particular legislation that could come out of the House today might mean that non-citizen migrants could be applying for the ability to vote. I mean, that's a concern some had, and they raised that concern. So interesting to see some of those stories about identification pop out of the Illinois House yesterday. Another measure that popped out of the Illinois House, this one's kind of fascinating because I remember when we had a similar task force created to look at property taxes. Illinois legislators call for meaningful property tax relief, not another study. So the lead to this story, Governor J.B. Pritzker could have another chance to create a task force to conduct a study of the Illinois property tax system after a measure advanced to both chambers, despite some saying it'll be a waste of time. You can go through, again, read this at thecentersquare.com. Talks about Senate Bill 3455, and what it does is it creates a task force. Sets up a task force, the Illinois Department of Revenue and the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, to study the property tax system in the state of Illinois. Illinois has among the highest property taxes in the country. All right, most of it goes to pay for K through 12 education. Look at your property tax bill. The largest part of it's K through 12 education. So clearly, that we know that. Illinois has among the most, if not the most, layers of government, right? We've got municipal government, you got a township government that wraps around that, you got a county government that wraps around that. Within that, you could have different library districts that you live in, or community college districts that you live in, or mosquito abatement districts, or park districts, and all these different taxing library districts. As I said, all these taxing bodies stack on top of each other, on top of the school district. Then you get the state government, then you get the federal government, and so on. So Illinois has some of the most number of taxing districts in the country, and even they overlap. That's another addition to the property tax issue. So you can see a lot of these things are known, right? And a lot of these things about Illinois' property tax system are known. But what's interesting here is this measure would create a second in about 5 years property tax task force. Back in 2019, Governor J.B. Pritzker signed a property tax relief task force. It had 88 members on it. 88 members on it. And I remember tracking this, trying to find out when's the next meeting, you guys holding meetings. They missed their deadline. All right. So the Property Tax Relief Task Force missed its deadline in 2020, and Republicans said at the time they wouldn't sign off on a draft report because it didn't include any substantive changes to the state's property tax system. But regardless of those concerns, this measure did ultimately pass yesterday out of the House. Now goes to the Senate. So we'll see yet another property tax task force at the Illinois State House. So those are just some of the things that happened yesterday. There's a lot of internal politics that goes on in the caucuses. Apparently, it's being reported by others that there's a leak within the Democrat caucus in the House, and some budget documents getting out to some news outlet, and they're trying to find the leak and punish them and to kick them out of the caucus, possibly. We'll see what happens there. But regardless, it's fascinating to see some of the cloak and dagger type of stuff that happens with your tax dollars. Right? I mean, is that normal for the government to be talking behind closed doors about how they're going to spend your tax dollars? on this special interest or that special interest, or how that all happens. Well, we'll do our darndest to keep you posted. And again, this is Bishop on Air. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, but please do go and like the Center Square as well. Donate, get the newsletter, and stay connected with what's going on at the Illinois State House. All right, it is Bishop on Air. Appreciate you guys being here each and every weekday morning. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and we'll see you back here soon.